Welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I got Joe Bartnick, comedian and just general hockey guy here. And then Josh Yohe, Mr. Scribe for the Penguins, athletic. Has been, nobody's more connected than Josh in the hockey world. So, guys, let's see. We got Game 7 tonight, the Stanley Cup Finals. And I would think that the Oilers are going to win. But I also thought whenever the Panthers went up 3-0 that they were going to win the Stanley Cup. And I also didn't expect the Panthers to go up 3-0. So if anything's taught us, if we learned anything from the Stanley Cup final, it appears that whatever you expect to happen is not going to happen. But it certainly sets the stage up for an exciting Game 7. So just wanted to get your thoughts on Games 4 through 6 and then what we're looking at tonight.
I can't believe it's come to this, Josh. I mean, I picked Florida in 6. I'm going to stand by that. I'm not going to jump ship, but it sure looks like Jesus is setting himself up for the final miracle.
Oh, that's good. It's interesting because I am the kind of man that looks at these things. In Vegas, Florida is a slight favorite in this game, which absolutely shocks me. Like, I think anybody I know in the hockey world that I've spoken with thinks Edmonton's probably going to win this game. It certainly feels like they're the favorite. It feels like Florida is completely rattled. It feels like it would be an upset if the Panthers won. I picked the Panthers in 7. I would love to tell you that they got them right where they want them. But anybody who's watched this series knows not only did it turn in Game 4, but the last couple of games really haven't been that competitive. Like, Edmonton's clearly been the better team. They have the puck all the time. I am stunned that this is happening. I really thought Florida would put it away in Game 5 at home, and they did not. And Joe, they look completely lost to me all of a sudden. I can't believe it, but I kind of feel like Edmonton's going to win this game.
It seemed like they were just giving the gentleman's sweep.
Yes.
It seemed like they, after Verhaeghe, the save on Verhaeghe, okay, the shorthanded goal came back. It's like, okay, 3-1. We'll pack it up. We'll have a nice Game 5.
Right.
Everything is turned in. I have 2 theories on this, and I'd like to hear them. You respond to maybe both of them.
Sure.
But I'll do them 1 and then 2. First off, something happened when Barkov took that high hit. He hasn't quite been the same. Okay, that's my one theory.
Mm-hmm.
My second theory is Barkov has been very good, but no one else has been. And maybe did they hit the wall from playing in 2 straight? I'm not making this an excuse, but they've played 2 straight finals because, in my opinion, in 2017, the Penguins were gassed out. And literally Sid, Gino, and Phil, with immense talent, and Snake, who did not play in 16, along with Muzz, carried them. Yeah. And even though Barkov was dinged, he's the only one, because he is talented, that has stepped up and looked like he still has gas left. Those are my 2 theories.
No, let's start with the second one first. I think it's valid. If you talk with Mike Sullivan about the 16 and 17 Cup teams, he'll tell you the 16 team was better, more dominant, but he'll also tell you that in a way he has more respect for the 17 team because he knew they were out of gas. And everybody, all of us around the team knew they weren't even practicing the last 2 series. They really weren't. They were so exhausted. They had nothing left. And, a couple of years back when Tampa lost to Colorado, I remember John Cooper saying, I'm actually more proud of this team than the 2 years before. And it was the same concept because you run out of gas eventually. And the way Florida plays, they don't make it easy on themselves. It's a physical team. They are very talented, but they can't get by on talent alone. They have to just outwork you, and typically they do. We aren't seeing that from them. You're right. I was shocked by how lifeless they were at the end of Game 6. I thought somebody would take a cheap shot or pick a fight or something. Just nothing. There was just nothing. It was like they were in shock.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Josh. It's like, and we kept hearing McDonough saying, you would think with a team with the cup on the line would be playing with more aggression. Yeah, that's what they got to be tired, or why wouldn't they be hunting down pucks?
No, I think that's absolutely valid. And I also think, Florida is a team, and we've seen it during the playoffs. They typically will wear you out as a series goes on. They just beat the hell out of you, and eventually it's too much. Edmonton wears you out in a different kind of way. You just get tired of skating with them all the time. And I wonder, we saw the Penguins in 16 do it. They beat Tampa 2-1 in Game 7. That game was never in doubt. Tampa was done. They just couldn't chase them anymore. And I wonder if that has been the case a little bit. The Oilers just play at a different speed than everybody else. We know this. And maybe there's just some physical fatigue there, even though they have had all these days off in between these games. So I think that's valid. And getting back to your first point, I don't want to forget that. Barkov is their best player. He's their most important player. And since he took that hit from Draisaitl, he hasn't been the same. And who knows? I'm not going to suggest he's playing with a concussion or something. They're pretty good about not letting guys do that. But he looks banged up. He doesn't look himself. And when we know, I think Draisaitl's playing hurt. We think a lot of people are playing hurt now because they are. But Barkov's the guy who makes that team go. And you're right, he hasn't looked the same since then. And I don't know what he might be playing through. Maybe it's a mental thing. It could be a lot of different things. But man, if the big guys don't step up for Florida, they got no chance. And it's not just Barkov. Where's Tkachuk been all series? I mean, Game 5, he was a little better, but he has been way too quiet. Sam Reinhart is having the worst series for a 57-goal scorer I've ever seen in my life. Like, where is he? Some of the big names, someone other than Erod needs to score a goal tonight for them.
I mean, Reinhart's just losing money. He's just throwing money out of his pockets.
He is.
In this series. Yeah.
See, Jake did it right. Jake had a couple good rounds. They lost. He's safe. He's going to make his money. You going to give Sam Reinhart $10 million a year now? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, he's going to have the hat trick.
Yeah.
I mean, but even, not much from Bennett. I love Bennett. Not much from Bennett. I can't say his name correctly. Lucerian. That guy. He's a killer. I mean, maybe he's a little banged. Yeah. I mean, we all thought Florida was the better team, but could Jesus perform miracles? Now, I mean, I'm not trying to say I knew it. I called it, but I go, Edmonton needs help from the bottom six. And finally he started letting those guys. Remember I said last week, why he pulled the emergency cord too quick. He needs these other guys feel good about themselves. Now all of a sudden, Henrique is scoring, McLeod scoring. These guys are scoring now, and now it's almost like Jesus doesn't have to carry the whole team, and it's like he can play better and just relax a little bit and know other things are handled now.
No, it's true, and I mean we've seen that with Connor Brown scoring shorthanded goals. Yes, McDavid, especially in Game 5, I thought that was probably the greatest performance of his career, given what was on the line. And he was great in Game 4, but it hasn't been, I keep reading all these things, McDavid carrying the Oilers back. Yes, he's been great, but there have been contributions all of a sudden from everywhere in that lineup, and their goaltender has been pretty darn good too. And we all know you want to beat a good team in a series. You have to have a game or two where the third or fourth liners show up, and that's why if I'm Florida, I'm petrified about tonight. You lost Game 6. McDavid didn't have a point.
Exactly.
Think you're going to shut him down 2 games in a row? History says you're not. And so instead of focusing just on shutting him down, to me, it's like if I'm Florida, if I'm Reinhart, Tkachuk, Barkov, Verhaeghe, whoever, I'm thinking, man, I better maybe score a goal tonight because guess what? We're not going to shut that team down. They're just too good right now. It's not going to happen.
And they, taking nothing away from them, but Edmonton is getting every break. I mean, I think with the game 6, correct? They hit 2 pipes, or they would have had the first goal,
right?
And then a couple of big saves, and then the review is everything I hate about that rule. The only reason why that rule is in place is so the Flyers can't be 30 feet offsides.
Right.
It shouldn't be so it's a pubic hair away, and we got to stop a Game 6 of I mean, come on.
I still haven't seen a definitive replay that shows that it was offside. Like, it's one of those, I think you use logic. You've watched enough hockey. You can kind of tell it maybe was offside, probably. That's not proof. Like, Paul Maurice went insane behind the bench. I don't blame him. I think I would have too if I were in his shoes. And I also think he felt the series slipping away at that point too. But replay is supposed to exist to take away egregious mistakes. It's not, we're not supposed to be sitting around staring at the TV for 10 seconds to figure out if it drives me insane.
You're right though. I really never saw one defend. And isn't in the rule book, if it's not definitive, then the call on the ice stands. I thought that was a hometown call, 1,000%.
Josh, I know you said this on Twitter, but geez, oh man, like, can we get a different rules analyst? Like, Gene Steratore is the best, not just because he's a Pittsburgher, but he actually tells it out how it is. It's like every other rules analyst, and now the NHL one. I think it was right. I think we got to go with what they said.
He's terrible. I'm sorry, Gene. They're all terrible. Gene, just retire. I hate the rules analysts. They never really go against what's said on the field. No. I do this in my act to mediocre responses, but it's like the cop that pulls behind the cop that pulls you over. That guy never goes against the first cop. So what's the point of having him? Gene, go on vacation. We don't need you on Sunday. We don't need this clown on ESPN ever. He's terrible. He makes Messier look competent.
That's actually a great analogy you just drew there with the cops pulling you over, of which I've had to deal with a time or two. That's really good. No, I agree. You guys know how I feel about replay in general, but for stuff like this, it drives me nuts. And listen, I don't really think there's some conspiracy theory to get Edmonton the Stanley Cup, but during Game 6, man, did it feel like they were getting every call. I mean, it really did. I think it was Edmonton's third goal. I want to say, was it score 2-1 or 3-1, whatever. It was still a game. And Sam Bennett got interfered with just blatantly. Nothing called. 10 seconds later, Edmonton scores, and that was pretty much it. No, if I'm Florida, I'm thinking, man, the Canadians want the Canadian team to win the cup and the Canadian superstar to get his cup. I can understand why they would feel that way, because it had that feel during Game 6. It did. I'm curious to see. I'm always fascinated by how games are officiated. And historically, a game like this, you're not going to see many penalties. But in this series, they have called a lot. So I'm curious to see what happens tonight. And one other note I wanted to make. There have been more than a few occasions in this series when there have been multiple penalties and it ended up being a 4-on-4 situation. That's exactly what Edmonton wants. It's like a power play for them.
Right.
And the refs have to be aware of that. If I'm Florida, if I'm Paul Maurice, I don't know who the ref is tonight. I'm saying, hey, can you they're trying to start scrums and get 4-on-4s because can you keep an eye on that, please? Because it's clear that's what they're doing.
It's flyer BS hockey, which I've said forever. That's what they want to do. They can't play 5-on-5. I'm not saying Edmonton can't, but that's BS flyer hockey. And that whenever Bennett and Tkachuk both got roughings on Jesus and they went 5-on-3, that's the most bogus, and that kickstarted their power play.
Yeah, it did.
There's been a lot. I'm not going to say that it's been, there's just been a lot of things that have gone Edmonton's way. The officiating, 1,000%. That one call on almost every Florida penalty has been a soft. For the playoffs. I'm not saying in December. I mean, for the Stanley Cup final, you better take somebody's head off.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there have been a couple of calls. There was one in Game 6, kind of a one-handed slash was called a penalty. I'm like, really? Like all the stuff you guys let go, you're calling that? And if you're Florida, I mean, it hurts you in so many ways. Number one, Florida is a physical team. They like to play that way. Number two, the last thing Florida wants is these games turning into a special teams fest, because we know what's going to happen. And for all the talk that Edmonton's power play gets, and rightfully so, its penalty kill is unbelievable, really all postseason. I don't know if it's great penalty killing or if Florida's power play is a little bit lost right now. Probably the combination. But as we all know, Florida wants about 2 penalties called in this game tonight, 1 on each team, and just play 5-on-5, and they'll certainly take their chances, because if it's 5 power plays each way, I see very little opportunity for Florida to win.
Now, do you guys see Bobrovsky having a bounce back tonight? And it really hasn't been his fault. Let's be completely honest. Like, he's facing breakaways that are starting from the opposing blue line. So I don't want to put all the blame on him, but he could certainly play a little bit better. I mean, I think his save percentage in the last 3 games is like 75%. So
he hasn't made any ridiculous saves to turn the tide. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. He's basically played like Jari. A little better than mediocre.
Well, and the problem with Bobrovsky, a week ago, the narrative was, well, this is going to seal up his Hall of Fame candidacy, blah, blah, blah. And he's been great. This is a goaltender who does have a long and decorated history of being a choke artist. Now, I realize that changed in the last couple of years, but historically speaking, he does not do well in high-pressure situations in the playoffs. Now he is going to be participating in one of the most talked about NHL games of all time when his team is on the verge of collapsing, playing at home, which I think even adds to the pressure on the goaltender in some ways. When we look back at Sergei Bobrovsky's career, and listen, he's put up great numbers. I'm not trying to take a shot at the guy. When we look back at his career, we're going to look back at this game first. This is the game we will all think of, win or lose, no matter what happens. The pressure on him is immense.
With all due respect to our Pittsburgh Penguins in 2009, this is the biggest Game 7 since 1994 in the NHL.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. And
I mean, there's people. I mean, everyone I know who's not even a hockey person is intrigued. I mean, this is arguably the greatest player. Not arguably the best player in the league right now, and in the argument now, around the argument of greatest player ever, trying to go against a 3-0 deficit to win 4 straight. I mean, this has got the world talking.
Well, and it worked out perfectly for the NHL. The NBA Finals wrapped up very quickly. They've had the spotlight for the last week. It's on a Monday night. You never want these games to be on a weekend if you're a sports TV person. You always get better ratings. On Monday is perfect. I bet it is probably going to be the most watched NHL game ever. I mean, in the United States, I would guess.
I don't know. Is Caitlin Clark on ESPN2?
Well, she has been getting huge ratings. You're not wrong, but no, I don't think. No, she played yesterday, so no.
The ladies don't go back to back. They're soft.
You got everything right, so it's like I think it's a huge opportunity for the league. And McDavid's not just the best player in the league; he is so entertaining. If you've never watched hockey before, if you're sitting on a farm in Iowa and you flip on ABC at 8:00 tonight. He's going to dazzle you because of this. He just looks different than everyone else. And
if you flip on ABC at 8, you're going to have to wait 20 minutes of that horrible talk show.
Good point. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. I wonder who Messier is cheering for tonight. But
oh my God, I know. Now I wish they would have faced the Rangers because then I'd see Messier split in half.
Yeah, he may have resigned before that series out of respect for his two teams.
I don't think he has any shame.
But no, I mean, this is unbelievable theater tonight. And you know what nobody's talked about really? And because of the tidal wave of momentum we're dealing with here, I understand it. What if Florida wins tonight? Mm-hmm. Then what do we say about McDavid, who he's going to win the Conn Smythe whether they win or lose, I guarantee you. I know the people who vote on this award, he's going to win it, and he's been brilliant. I'm taking nothing away from him. But if Florida does win this game tonight, as brilliant as McDavid has been, you can still say at age 27 he's never won a damn thing. That's never won anything in juniors. He's never won the cup. Like, he still has to win tonight. It's all for a lot of people. It feels like a foregone conclusion they're going to win. I'm kind of leaning that way too. But I'm just curious how we'll look at this series and at McDavid if they lose.
Well, the Canadian media, which I don't like most of them. They were leaning on giving him the Conn Smythe, in Game 5. And I was like, I just don't believe in giving losers the Conn Smythe. I think he deserves the Conn Smythe now. Unless Bobo has a 90 save shutout.
Right. And if that happens, I mean, you got to consider that.
But I think he deserves, I think he deserves the Conn Smythe.
Either way.
I just I think this puts him. I think this if Edmonton wins, I think this puts him in the tier below the Holy Trinity. And a week ago, I was arguing with Andy Picardo on my other podcast about how there's no way he's in the car. He's not. Who's he knocking off? Is he knocking off Sid or knocking off Gordie Howe? I go, he needs a couple more cups and win a couple gold medals. But now he's in that grouping. I'm not knocking off Sid or Gordy right now of Mount Rushmore, and he's not in the Trinity, but he's circling the Trinity now. If he wins tonight, if he doesn't win tonight, he's back down there with Iserman and Trottier and Mess. He's.
Yeah, I mean, we cannot deny the historical numbers that he's putting up. He's putting up Gretzky and Lemieux numbers, but
right.
No one else has ever done that, and that is a credit to him. I agree with you, but I still feel like if he doesn't finish the job, that's going to tail him for a long time. Like it just is. He's going to have to deal with that until he wins the cup, and he's got his opportunity tonight. I said a week ago, Joe, I said I see no way how this Florida team could lose 4 games in a row. But then I said after Game 5, I also see no way that McDavid's going to let his team lose at this point now. So something's got to give. And if you're right, if he pulls this off, Edmonton wins tonight. He's going to be considered top 5 all time at that point. He just is. I mean,
yeah.
and rightfully so, I think, when you consider the talent and everything that he's done. If he loses tonight, though, it gets a little murky. I know there are some people, he stole the best player ever, blah, blah, blah. No, you got to win it. You have to win on this stage, and maybe he will. But he still hasn't finished the job. I think some people are ignoring that.
No, 1,000%. I mean, like, let's say he gets 2 goals and an assist, and they lose 5-4. Okay,
right.
That is like, hey, you're right there. That he still didn't win. I take your point, but it's like, okay. But if they lose 3-0 and he gets goose egged, that is a big stain.
It also makes the Game 6 goose egg look worse.
And you know what's interesting? He was quiet.
No, Corey, I'm sorry. They won. Winning.
That's true. I'm just saying if he goes quiet in the last 2 games.
It's interesting to me because he was quiet in the first 2 games of the series. And, he didn't have a point in Game 6. So he hasn't been completely dominant throughout the series. Just what he did in Games 4 and 5 was so breathtaking. Mm-hmm. You just don't see hockey played at that level. So I am like everyone else. I will be sitting on the couch at maybe not 8 o'clock because I don't like the pregame show either, but at 8:20, I will be sitting on the couch. I hope it's a great game. I hope we get overtime, whatever, it is a great celebration for hockey. We talk about how the game doesn't sell stars enough, how the game doesn't get in the spotlight enough. Well, even though it's June 24th, which is way too late for the season to be ending, but nonetheless, hockey's getting a big stage tonight, and it's only going to be a positive, I think, moving forward.
It kind of sets up, even as you said before, like Monday night. Everyone knows Monday night, that's like the college national championship game. That's right. Monday Night Football. Mm-hmm. That's, big things at the NCAA Final Four Monday night.
There's a reason for that. Everybody's home on Monday night watching TV. That's exactly right.
That's like what they should almost schedule like the big ones on Monday nights, It's I have a heart. I'm torn because A, I picked the Cats. B, I just did Philly radio and they were saying how much they hate Crosby. And I was like, jealousy is not a good look on anybody. So I don't want to be a hater on McDavid either. Like I love seeing, I would, if he gets a hat trick, that'd be crazy. But then a little piece of me is like, we're tied 5-5 with expansion cups. If they win tonight,
that is true.
Then we're knocked down a peg. Then we're not the winningest post 67 team. We're tied for it.
That is very, very true. So yeah, I mean, there's so many different angles from a national perspective, even from the Pittsburgh perspective. And I know how it is in Pittsburgh. Everybody's cheering for Florida because nobody wants like Sid or Mario's legacy challenged at all by somebody else. I was like, yeah. So any Penguin fan can always say, "Oh, that guy's never won a cup." But it's true. You do have to win. I don't care what sport you're talking about. If you want to be viewed as, the greatest of all time or in a category with Gretzky and Lemieux and Orr, those guys all won multiple cups. You got to win at least one. And you won't get a better chance than he's going to have tonight because that Florida team, as good as they are and as much respect as I have for them, they don't look right at all in any way. I mean, they are as vulnerable as they could possibly be.
Yeah. What do you think Maurice has? Is there any lineup change? Any lines? Even Tarasenko looks tired. They look. I don't know what he can with the bingo rolling the bingo balls around, I don't know what they can really do. Do you put Vlad up and may move Verhage down, or maybe move Reinhardt down? Like I don't know what you do.
I'm curious to see what he does, dude. What happened to Tarasenko? He was such of a star a few years ago. I thought he was like 38. He's only 32 years old. He looks like.
Well, it was funny though. He played pretty good for the Rangers when Kane crapped the bed last year, and then he did pretty good playoff up until like a week and a half ago.
Yeah, right. He's just been quiet in the final, I guess. I mean, he's still a good player. Maurice, I don't think he'll make many lineup moves. He might, flip a line here or there.
You got to play Okposo, right? You got to play Okposo, right?
I would think so. But yeah, when you get this far, you might lose your team a little bit if you just bench a couple of guys. You got to go with.
He benched him for Game 6. That's all. He put in.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm saying
Maurice's greatest weapon, though, is just his ability to psychologically relate to a team. That was when they went on their hot streak last year, when he went nuts during that game in March, and about 30 F-bombs. It worked. He always has his hand on the pulse of this team, but this is a big moment for him too. He's never won it. You go up 3-0 in the final and you lose it. Oh my God, the pressure on him tonight, the pressure on everybody in Florida is just off the charts.
That's a great question, Josh, because I kind of think that the woe is me pressure is obviously on Florida, but there's got to be pressure on Jesus and Leon now that they've come this far.
Well, yeah, there is, and especially, it's like a foregone. If I did a Twitter poll right now, who do you think is going to win tonight? I bet 80% of people would say Edmonton. Everybody thinks Edmonton's going to win, and that this will be his crowning achievement. And like I said, it might happen, but you still have to go out and do it. You're still on the road. It's still a Game 7.
Last change, Maurice. I'll tell you.
Yes.
First goals are always huge. First goals in Game 7s are immense. This may be the most important first goal in the history of professional hockey.
No, it's up there. It's kind of like
the trajectory of McDavid's.
Yeah, Game 7. You're right. It's kind of like when you're playing against Marty Brodeur and the Devils. You better score first. If you don't, the game's over. Games like this, we would all love to see a 6-5 overtime game. I wouldn't bet on that. These types of games, teams typically play it really safe. You don't see a high number of shot totals at all. If you go back, Penguins Red Wings Game 7 in 2009, that was a very low scoring, low shot total game. Not a ton of odd man rushes. Talbot did get the one on the goal, but teams are going to play it safe in these situations typically. So that makes the first goal that much more important. And I think it's much more important for Florida just because of the way this. Like if you're Edmonton and you fall down 1-0, okay, we got McDavid and Draisaitl, we'll be fine. If you're Florida, you've lost 3 in a row, all the pressure's on you, then you fall down. What if Edmonton scores like a minute into the game? That's going to major problems for the Panthers if a scenario like that would unfold.
1,000. I think Florida has to get the first goal, I think it's done. And I also think if Edmonton takes a penalty, Bennett better go over there and break somebody's wrist to make sure that they don't get a power play and give up a shorthanded goal. I mean, they're better on 4-on-4 than they've given up 2 shorthanded goals in 2 games. They don't want a power play because, as we know as Penguin fans, nothing worse than early power play that goes nowhere and kills momentum.
That's the worst when you get like 3 power plays in the first 10 minutes and you don't score on any of them. They're done, right?
Yeah, or a 5-minute major and nothing happens. That's the worst.
I was thinking about EJ with how poor their power play looked, and I was thinking about your EJ comment, thinking, I wonder if he's at home sitting here making some notes on what Florida should be doing.
He might be. I mean, he is the power play whisperer if ever there's been one. So you might well be right. But that Florida power play's been, it's hard to watch. It wasn't very good in the last round either. Toward the end of the series against the Rangers, Florida was the better 5-on-5 team. That's why they won, but their power play wasn't really humming, as I recall. It just looks completely out of whack. Like earth to Sam Reinhart. Like, we know you're not really a 57-goal scorer, even though you did it. Score a power play goal tonight. That's what you do. And that boy, they need him.
What do you think? Because I took I took the Eastern Conference I took them destroying the Rangers as this to show the Metro stunk.
Yeah.
Now I'm almost looking at it like maybe the whole East just didn't compare. Now I know they had some powerhouses out West. I mean, we consider Vegas, Colorado. I think like 5 of them. I thought the only team that could compete against the West out of the East was really Florida. And now, now it's like, well, they could go 7 games, I guess.
No, I mean, there's no question the West was better than the East this season, and that was, something you had to keep in mind when you were making the final pick. And I was thinking about that, but I still thought, I don't know. I just think it's Florida's time. I think they're ready. The weird thing about this series, though, if you look at it at Florida's perspective, they were up 3-0. They didn't really dominate those first 3 games. In fact, I thought Edmonton was clearly the better team in game 1. I thought game 3 was 50-50. Game 2, Florida was pretty good. It's not like it was a convincing 3-0 series lead, I guess, from that standpoint, which makes you think, geez, maybe Edmonton's just better. I can't wait to watch it tonight. It's great theater, a great stage for the league. And truthfully, we don't know what the hell's going to happen, and that's what makes it so much fun.
Can I jump off that point, Josh? About 2 games ago, I said to a couple friends of mine that maybe I was completely wrong. That I thought the Canadian media was just being a bunch of whiny babies and saying, well, if they got this break here, they got this break here, that really Edmonton should be winning this series. And I thought, what a bunch of crap. Now I'm watching the last 3 games like maybe they were right and I'm the idiot. You know what I mean? Like maybe it really was. Florida got a couple lucky bounces, and really it should be over. And Edmonton's the better team.
There's no question who the Canadian media is cheering for. It's actually,
oh my God,
it's interesting because most of them are from Toronto. Like I don't know if I'm a big Leafs fan. Like I don't know that I'm cheering for the Oilers just because they happen to reside in the same country as me. That's so weird to me.
Flames fans are the only ones that have it right. They're like,
the Flames fans. Yeah, they must be sick to their stomachs right now.
Well, what's funny about all that though too is like and believe me, I notice every slight. They really, really can't wait to jump over Crosby and Lemieux at any chance they get, especially Messier. He can't wait. I mean, people in Pittsburgh don't like PK Subban. He's sticking up for the black and gold a lot on national television.
He is. And well, listen. Mario's from Montreal. Sid's from Nova Scotia. McDavid's from Toronto. Don't think that doesn't make a difference. I assure you, those from Toronto are very loyal to their own. I see it all the time. And again, we're not knocking McDavid. He's great. But it almost gets painful to like, okay, he is great. No question. I read somewhere, somebody wrote today, he's the most talented player since Gretzky. I was like, whoa, time out. Now we've gone a little too far now. He is great, yes. He's more talented than Gretzky for that matter, but let's not let's not exclude certain people from the conversation. But that's what happens. Everybody wants to say, well, the player I'm covering is the greatest of all time, and it's not.
Well, the thing is I have no problem saying he's more talented than Sidney Crosby, but to say he's more talented than Mario Lemieux, that's just
blasphemous.
Well, it's just not true. I mean, it's like, I'm even being a homer saying that. It's just not true.
No,
I mean, ask anyone that played against Lemieux.
No, of course. And I wrote a couple of weeks ago in an article, like he is more talented than Crosby. Now, Crosby's a lot more accomplished. And even if McDavid wins tonight, he's got a long way to go.
2 more cups, a couple gold medals. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, he's got a ways to go in that regard. But you can't deny that. I would certainly say he's the most talented player I've seen since Mario, for sure. But yes, the way people talk about him, like he's the best ever because guys in the 70s and 80s weren't as fast, and like okay, that's like if you want to tell me that like Cam Hayward's better than Joe Green because like 60 years later of training or whatever, great. But let's not go that far, please.
Yeah. That what? That's even worse. McDavid is way closer to Lemieux than Cam Hayward will ever be.
You know what I mean?
Joe Green. I know.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, Joe, you probably thinking a lot of people probably think I hate McDavid. I really don't. It just drives me nuts hearing the media talk about it. Like, because I'm like, yeah, he's great. Like, he's one of the greatest players of all time. It's obvious. And honestly, I don't hate Edmonton. I rooted for them in 2006 against Carolina. Like, I really wanted to see them win. And now I'm wearing a USA hockey shirt. So it probably looks like I'm talking out my ass. But They did not deserve another number 1 overall pick. Even though Buffalo's in the East, I felt like Buffalo really deserved McDavid when they were going to get him. So I don't know. That's my beef with it. But I mean, he's a great player, and he's a joy to watch. It is. I finally figured out watching this Cup final, because I never watched them 7 games in a row. But I'm like, it's his frenetic pace. That is what his difference is. When I'm like, what's the difference between him and Mario? Because they have the, I mean, he went through 4 guys to set up that Corey Perry goal. He's almost got like an antsy, frenetic pace to him. Mario had that grace, like he was just silky smooth. But yeah, I don't know. I nothing against McDavid and the Oilers, but it's like I've just they've shoved it down our throats. We get it. You love them. Messier looks like he's gonna pop like a pimple after that second period, and he was so excited. I can't handle that. That being said, it's fun to watch the great one.
It took me a long time to finally just really not hate Messier and just be at peace with Messier. And now I hate him again because of all this.
Oh, he's probably pissed because Ronnie Francis picked his pocket in that game 4 in 92. So he's probably hasn't got over that. They were President's Trophy winners that year, I think, right?
I just thought that, I just Ranger Messier and then Vancouver Messier. I have no problem with Edmonton Messier.
That's fair.
Yeah. I just thought Messier, and he finally got suspended for like 2 games. He just took so many cheap shots on people, and it's just like, what are you doing, Messier? And then he finally got suspended for a game or 2. Yeah, I mean, he was just dirt. When he came east, he just became a dirty player. But you couldn't say anything because he's Mark Messier.
And how old were you in the 91-92 era, Joe? Because I mean,
I'm not good at math. I was in where the hell was I?
Were you in college? Because Josh and
I was supposed to be.
Well, I was in college longer than I was supposed to be, so it's
no. I mean, I was floating around. It was around that era.
Well, yeah, it's just I'm curious because I didn't have, obviously as a young age, I didn't have that understanding. I saw Messier as the guy out east. That's who I grew up watching, and I never got to really see the Oiler Messier.
Yeah, well, like I was, in all fairness to those Oilers too, I was a huge Islander fan.
Wow.
Because of Bossy and Trottier. And this is, I mean, hey, let's face it. It was like we had nothing. I was a Canadian fan. And then I was a Team USA Mike Eruzione fan. And then, and then we fought. I mean, like I told every podcast, we were the Clippers until 66.
Yeah, and you said,
we were, people made fun of hockey. I was made fun of because we like the Penguins. You're a hockey team, I mean, It was worse than the Pirates because at least the Pirates can pretend from 70 years ago they were good.
Right.
We never had that.
Something.
Yeah.
The Penguins had padlocks as their history. Padlocks on the door.
Yeah.
Oh my. Well, before we wrap up the whole show, I'll ask you guys for we'll get into some Penguin stuff in the next segment, and then I'll ask you guys for your predictions. That'll certainly be 100% guaranteed, maybe. But that'll do it for the first segment. On the next segment, we'll get into some Penguin stuff. Alex Nedeljkovic resigns with the Penguins, and then a couple of other trades around the NHL that might affect the value of a one Tristan Jarry. We'll get into that and more on the second segment of Two for Talking. Welcome back to Two for Talking. And so Ned resigns, everyone's favorite Cleveland Browns fan. I still can't believe he wore that jersey in the locker room. Myles Garrett, nonetheless. But Ned is back and at a really reasonable rate. Josh, what are your thoughts on the signing?
I was surprised, and I'll tell you why. Very simply, Kyle Dubas was asked about his goaltending situation right when the season ended, a couple of days after the season ended. And based on everything he said, you would have been pretty certain that Nedeljkovic was going to try out free agency, that the Penguins didn't feel comfortable giving him a lot of money because they already had Jarry. They've got some, young guys in the system they really like. It kind of felt like, well, thanks for the year of service, Ned, but, we probably don't have the money for you. Obviously, that was not the reality of what happened. $2.5 million, I think, is perfectly reasonable. I have seen some people on Twitter or X or whatever we call it, like, it's too much money for an average goalie. It's $2.5 million. No, it's not. He's a solid guy. That's perfectly fine. But my first thought when the news came was about Tristan Jarry. And I'm not one to push trade rumors, but man, I know they weren't happy with him at the end of the season. He makes a lot of money. There's a lot of teams that need goaltenders out there. Now you bring back Ned, and that's going to be a lot of money at the goaltender position if you keep Tristan. I'm not telling you Jarry's going to be traded this summer. I'm telling you don't be shocked if he is. It just, man, and I can't get over the last month of the season. They wouldn't even give him a start. The last game of the year, Joe, on Long Island, it meant nothing. It was irrelevant. Ned was so tired he could barely carry his equipment into the building, I think. They still gave him the start. So irritated were they with Jarry. And that just makes me wonder what's going to happen in the next few weeks.
Oh, I think Jarry's gone. And I'm happy about that. I don't not like Jarry the way I despise Casey DeSmith. But time to go. Okay, go. And the great thing now is you can trade him for a warm 6-pack. Doesn't really matter because now we'll have cap space. You don't need to win the trade now because we lost Nedeljkovic. We don't need to get like a lesser goalie than Jarry back and worry about it. Now we have a rookie kid and we got Ned. And we're satisfied with Ned in a way. I mean, I am. I'll take him over Jarry.
Well, and the thing with Ned, he's solid. He gave them a chance in the last month of the season to make the playoffs. So I think he's ever going to be the number one guy in a cup team? No, but I don't think Jarry is either. And Jarry's making what, 5.3 mil?
Right.
If I'm the Penguins, I would certainly prefer to allot that money elsewhere and add, a legitimate number 3 center or a couple of legitimate bottom 6 wingers, whatever. To me, that would be the smarter way to spend that money. And also, it's no secret, Kyle Dubas wants to add prospects and draft picks eagerly. He knows the Penguins need those things. If there's a team out there that's willing to give you a couple of picks for Jarry, personally, I wouldn't think twice. I don't know that that'll be the case. Dubas did give him a 5-year deal. GMs don't often like to admit, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So, they tend to prefer to stick with their investments for a while. But I wouldn't be shocked. It was just my first thought when the Ned news broke. Like, boy, that's interesting. I wonder how they're feeling about Tristan right now because we know there are teams out there that could use a goaltender.
I just can't see them keeping all 3 goaltenders. They're not going to go into the season with those 3.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
Right? No, it just doesn't make sense. So
if all 3 were veterans, maybe, but when one, hasn't even played in the NHL yet, obviously you don't want a rookie just hanging around all year and not playing. But if they think he's ready to go, I know he didn't have a great postseason. Wilkes-Barre was eliminated very quickly. He didn't play real well. I don't know if they're holding that against him at all, but you got to get some new blood in there. It's just the way it is.
Let's say you think, well, Ned isn't the starting goaltender on the cup-winning team. Well, the Penguins aren't a cup-winning team.
That's right.
You might as well have Ned, and then Ned will be gone in 2 years. Maybe when we bring in the veteran guy, the presence to come in and the final piece to his Stanley Cup puzzle. Because right now there's so many pieces away that if you could move Jarry, it would be incredible. And I want to get to this because to me, the Kings are my mistress team, and if anyone who's followed my hockey, pseudo journalism career, I went ape crap last year when the Kings gave away half their team for Pierre Puke Dubois, who literally had 2 good playoff series under Tortorella lighting a fire under his ass. Other than that, he's just been terrible. He's a team killer. He didn't play good when his dad was the coach. And he's completely overpaid. And then he gets traded to Washington. I never thought you could unload this contract. So this is great for the Penguins for 2 reasons. One, if you think that you can't get rid of a contract, maybe someone will take Ryan Graves because someone was stupid enough to take Pierre-Luc Dubois. And the team stupid enough to take Pierre-Luc Dubois was the Washington Capitals. So they got infinitely worse. They traded a good goaltender. They traded Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper won the Stanley Cup. Now he's come to the Kings. What? I mean, it was like a miracle on whatever street on Pico Boulevard. I mean, are you kidding me?
I looked at my phone when I kind of did the double take. I'm like, really? Washington wanted him? Like, because the Capitals, like, they did some good things in the last year. They're kind of doing a little mini rebuild. They've got some decent young players. They weren't a playoff team. They didn't deserve to be there, but they still made it. Bringing that guy in with all the money he makes, especially, I think LA's paying some of it, but
none.
Oh, they're not. Oh, is it? Oh, well, that makes it even worse. It's a very curious move. I wouldn't want that guy on my team. Just his reputation for being lazy.
He's terrible. I mean, thank God the waves are bad that day, so Blake couldn't surf, so he made that deal. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it went because now you can say, okay, you gave up all that, you gave up half your team for Kemper. Okay, you need a goaltender. I can't even believe Washington took him. Like,
I think it's further proof that anybody is tradable. And I certainly learned my lesson when Rob Scuderi was traded for Trevor Daley. I'll never forget that trade. Because Scuderi was just tragically bad that season. He was so awful. To not only get rid of him, but to get a legitimately good player in Trevor Daley was just staggering at the time. How's this even possible? So you never know. Let me tell you something. Hockey GMs aren't always the smartest human beings on earth. They're really not. Some are. Kyle Dubas is a bright guy. But there's a handful out there that are, like, if you just met them in the street, they would strike you as idiots. Like, they will make trades that you wouldn't even imagine. So anything's in play. But I actually thought of you when that trade was made because I know how much you hate him.
He's right. Crushed my franchise. I mean, when you write, I mean, oh, wait a second. Not only now I'm in the space today, but not only did we lose Velarde and like four other guys, they had to get rid of the really good offensive defenseman. We shipped him to Arizona because to fit everyone's contracts under the cap. Dursey, who was like a young Drew Dowdy. I saw him at camp. Oh, this guy's good. To make way for Puke. But I just think it really opens the door for Ryan Graves. If someone's dumb enough to take Puke, someone may take Ryan Graves.
And I assure you, the Penguins would be more than willing to make that happen. I've talked with so many people in the front office really since February until now, and every single one will tell you, like, oh boy, we made a big mistake on that one. Like, he's just no good. And it's no coincidence. We talk about that late surge that the Penguins went on when they nearly made the playoffs. And yes, Crosby was magnificent and Ned played really well and Gino turned back the clock a little bit. But don't forget, Ryan Graves was out of the lineup.
Oh, I know.
And the blue line was so much better. When Ryan Shea looks that much better than your, $4.5 million investment, that's a pretty telling thing.
And the other big trade that changed everything in the Metro is Markstrom is now a Devil, and poor old buddy Lindy Ruff. As soon as he leaves the place, they get the goaltender he needed. Everywhere he goes, there's never goaltending until he leaves.
Poor Lindy. I know.
My question for you, Josh, is: does that mean what can the Penguins get? Because they got a first-round pick for him.
Well, no, I thought that I actually I posted immediately after the trade. I put Markstrom's stats in his career side by side with Jari's. They're almost identical. In fact, Jari's numbers career-wise are slightly better. Markstrom's better in the playoffs, of course. And Jari's 5 years younger. So I just thought, I understand Jari has a reputation being a guy who can't win big games, and it's very much earned. But nonetheless, the guy's a good regular season goalie. Yeah, he makes over $5 million. He makes a lot, but there are goalies who make a lot more than that. I have to think they could unload him if they wanted to. I just, I'm not inside of Kyle Dubas's mind. I don't know how disappointed he is in Jari, but man, if I'm Dubas, if I can trade Riley Smith and if I can trade Tristan Jari, I do it in a heartbeat. All of a sudden, instead of $13 million to spend, you got $23 million to spend. Then you could really remake your team a little bit in free agency. without giving up any assets along the way, except for two guys that aren't really helping you anyway.
It's almost like you have so much off the cap that you could just buy out Graves just to get rid of him. I mean, he was terrible. I know Gonchar wasn't, Bobby Orr his first season, and I know Paul Martin wasn't Ray Bork his first season. But when you get guys from, Wilkes-Barre coming up and looking like Paul Coffey compared to you, I don't know,
No, I always hear people say, "Oh, Paul Martin had his struggles." Yeah, he didn't look that bad.
Yeah.
No,
I've seen close. A lot of bad defensemen. He didn't look that bad.
And yeah, they could buy out Graves. The problem with that is, if you want to buy him out, that still means you have to pay probably $1 million against the cap for the next 10 years, just because of him. And that's tough.
It's tough. So, it's tough watching him play, though, man.
I know. No, it's not. And I suspect they'll probably put him on a third pairing role this season, and hope that he handles it better and is competent. If he isn't, then after next season, I would have to think they've got some real interesting decisions to make with him, because we know how bad he was last year. It was hard to ignore.
But that's what I'm thinking, though. You get your $23 million. They are going to trade Riley Smith, and I think they're going to trade Jari just because they're not going in with three guys. If you put money on the back end, they're going to be playing defense. I mean, you get 20. They're not going to get 6 forwards for 20. They're going to get another defenseman, and I kind of like Ludwig back there. I certainly like the other kid back there that played great at the end of the year. It's been
St.
so
Ivany.
St. Ivany. So that's 2, and then we know the other 3 that are going to play. So then it's like,
well, I do wonder, and this is no knock on P.O. Joseph. I actually thought he was pretty good in the last month of the season. I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
I also don't really think he's a top 4 defenseman. If you want to look at quick fixes to make the Penguins a much better team immediately, you already have Carlson and Letang on the right side. You've got Pettersson, who's outstanding. If they could find a top 4 left-handed defenseman, like a good one, that's a pretty formidable top 4, assuming whatever was going on with Letang at the end of last year. He can be a little bit of a roller coaster, we know. But that could be a really good top 4. Maybe that's your fastest way to becoming a good team again. I don't know. But I do know spending $8 million on your goaltending right now, when you've already got bad contracts like with Graves, and frankly, I don't like Raquel's deal very much either at the moment. No. You can't put that much money in goaltending. That's why I would trade Jari, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
Well, let be like, okay, you say PO, we upgrade PO, right? You got Ludwig and St. Ivany, right? That's what I'm saying. I can't see can Graves earn a roster spot over Ivany and Ludwig, or will everyone in the room know, which I think undermines everything, when a guy is only playing because he's making that amount of money? Because we saw that for 2 months last year. The only reason why Graves was playing was because he was making all that money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you probably saw it with Jeff Carter for a while, even though I thought Carter was much better last season than the season before. You see stuff like that all the time. And I think, listen, St. Ivany's right-handed, so he's going to play on the right side. We know Graves is on the left side. Graves' real competition is going to be with P.O. Joseph and with Ludwig. And
right? I mean,
he wasn't better than either one of them last season.
That's what I'm saying.
Ryan Shea is nothing special. He was better than Graves, too, by a mile late in the year. I think he was fine. He's serviceable. Graves was something far below serviceable, whatever word you can think of. And he knew it too. But by the way, Ryan Graves, really nice guy. You'd walk into the locker room after games last year, and I swear to God, he was sitting there just looking down like this. Like he looked depressed. You wanted to put your arm around him. You all right, pal? Hang in there. You're making $4.5 million a year. You're good. Life's not that bad. But you could tell he was thinking to himself, what the hell happened? Why can't I play? It's a very curious situation.
Yeah, to say the least. And if there's a way that they could just move away from Jari and him, there's a handful of guys they got to get rid of. But I don't know. It'll be really interesting. And the NHL free agency is only 1 week away.
Corey, like if they get rid of, I think they're going to get rid of Jari and Riley. Then Raquel's contract, hey, it's not the best, but it's not terrible
killing
anymore.
Right.
Then they can have a little depth.
No, that's we talk about it all the time. That's how you win games. Some of those, decent players that maybe shouldn't be on the top line get moved down to Drew O'Connor, for instance. Perfect example. Go get a good left winger in free agency. Drew's on your third line. That makes your third line look pretty good. If he's on your first line, I don't really know if he's that guy, even though I like him. So, yes, getting more players always has a magical way of making the hockey team better, to put it in very simple terms.
Yeah, and I just think a guy, I know I've said this many times, like a Lawson Cross, I think a guy I think a big guy with bad intentions playing with Malkin would be where I would look. Because I think Sid's going to carry whoever he needs to carry. But I think we need to keep Gino going the whole time.
Yeah.
It's been an issue, no question.
You get the end of season Gino from the beginning. That'd be great. All right, well, that'll do it for the second segment. On the third segment, we'll get into some stuff leading into the off season. And also I wanted to talk to you guys about, since it is Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, we'll get your picks, but also remembering the day of Game 7 in 2009. So we'll talk about that more on the third segment of Two for Talking. Welcome back to the third segment of Two for Talking. So, here we are, almost 4th of July, and that's what everybody thinks of as the Stanley Cup wrapping up. So what are we going to do with ourselves here after the Stanley Cup is over? Because we only have 4 weeks. Today is Monday, June 24th, and I heard the Steelers training camp schedule yesterday, and they go to camp on July 24th. So the NHL is somehow taking that window that we used to have from the beginning of June until the first week of August, where the Pirates had to entertain us. And now the NHL and the NFL have maybe worked together to bring it down to 1 month, Joe, where all you got to do is read books. So
God bless America. I mean, literally, because that's always what they do. It's like, the hockey's over. I'm like, I'm gonna read some books. And then, because I'm not getting sucked into golf or tennis. I remember being at Gordie House Sports Bar in up I forget the little town in Canada where he's from, and I literally walked in and it was bicycle racing, golf, and tennis. I'm like, where's the rope I can hang myself? I'm finally in Gordie House Sports Bar. There's nothing to watch. I do read in the summer, which I will be doing. I can't wait for camp. I just can't wait for camp. But the other thing I'm gonna try to do is, because I literally, it's a joke, but it's the truth. Like Saturday, I watched 4 episodes of Kojak. and then yesterday I watched 2 episodes of Kojak because I have Pluto. But I'm going to try to get into a show. I watched some Bookie with Sebastian Maniscalco. I watched the first 4 or 5 episodes. That was pretty funny. I'm going to try to get into one of those shows that everyone's watching, like the Mayor of Bridgertown or the King of Bridgeville or whatever. One of those shows, so I can be relevant when people are talking at parties. Like, oh, I've seen that show, because usually it's like, oh, I really watch is Me TV. So I'm going to try to jump into a series, watch it, and then boom, we're up at Latrobe. Always good in the world.
I've been complaining for quite some time about, I don't want to watch hockey at the end of June. But the one good thing about the schedule is we have a very short period of time until, our minds can be stimulated by some Stillers football. So, yeah, there's only a month, right? We can all handle a month. And I'm lucky, a perk of my job, I get to go to Vegas for the draft anyway. So that'll, occupy me for the next 5 or 6 days. My favorite TV show, Cobra Kai, comes out, I think, July 17th or 18th. So that'll, keep me going for a little while. So, we'll find some time, and maybe I'll write some articles to, try to entertain people. That's where we're going to have some surprises for people in the next month or so. We'll have some old friends from the past, from the 90s teams, perhaps visit us for a segment. We can spend a month reminiscing. Joe can read his book. So we're going to find a way. We'll get through it.
What are you going to be gambling on in Vegas since there's no more hockey? No football. Is summer football going on? Is it like the other league going on, the USFL or the Rocks Football League? Is that going on?
I think that's over, isn't it?
I think it's over. I guess I don't know. I don't like to gamble much in the summer because baseball's hit or miss. Hockey's no good to gamble on. Empty net goals have had people, lose their mortgages left and right over the years. I have no doubt. So no, that's a very fair question. Hey, we have the Olympics coming up at the end of July. Maybe if some people are still into that. I was actually just thinking the other night, though, remember when we were young, what a big deal the Olympics were? Like, we would all shut down for those 2 weeks and watch the Olympics like every day. Now it's like nobody cares. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or what it means, but not the popular thing that it once was, much to NBC's dismay, I would assume.
Yeah, that's a great question. When did it go away? Because I mean, the Russians didn't come to LA, but that was an amazing games.
84, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was a kid. I watched those. That was great.
The
I remember
96 one.
Lionel Richie did the closing ceremonies.
Ooh.
I remember
like,
all night long.
Like 92 was still pretty big. 96, well,
Dream
92
Team
was the
was
Dream
huge.
Team, right?
Dream
96
Team
was in
huge.
Atlanta, so that was cool just because we had it here. Maybe it was after then, I don't know. But I remember when I was a kid, like the 88, 92, 96 Olympics were such of a big deal. That's all anybody would be talking about. And now it's like if you asked a common sports fan, hey, who's going to win the 100-meter dash or who's the favorite? But they knew who Carl Lewis was in 1984. I don't think they know who anyone is now.
Usain Bolt. Well, it's just a fragmentation of everything now.
That's true.
When there was four, because it used to be you'd be watching the mobile track and field games on because you only had 5 channels.
Right.
Yep.
No, I say that all the time. Like, yeah, people are never going to watch sports as much as they did, per capita back then because there's 150 channels on and there are 1,000 channels, whatever. You can watch anything you want now. So that does certainly make a difference. Makes a difference for network television shows, you name it. But yeah, it just feels like the Olympics, they don't get the buzz. I still like watching them, honestly. I like the summer and winter games, but they don't get the buzz they once did. And I know in a couple of years for the winter games, we'll be excited because there will be a Pittsburgh theme. Sid's going to be the captain of Team Canada. Sullivan's coaching Team USA. There will be a lot of other Penguins figures involved. So that will be fun at least.
That is one thing that now, because Sully is the coach and we'll probably have Jake and who knows, maybe the Rusty Rays will sneak in there. I will be full board Team USA because I'm not saying I'm a commie, but when it was like Tortorella, I'd be like, you better not hurt Sid or Gino. Right. I was kind of like, half rooting for Gino, half rooting for Sid, didn't really care. But now it's like, oh my God, I don't want Connor to get a gold medal. F that. Like, let's go. USA, and Billy G, the GM, though. I'm all Team USA now, man. I'm 1,000% Team
and
USA.
I go back to 2010. It was so fascinating because I think most Pittsburghers were cheering for Team USA. But when it was Sid that scored the goal, that made it okay. If it would have been like Mike Richards, that would have been the worst thing ever. Yeah, it was good for Sid, so we'll be okay with that. It was such of a strange experience, I think, for sports fans back then.
I think I yelled out, "Of course!" Like, of course. Like, why?
It is like the only because it is really like to me. I mean, the cup means more than the gold medal. I think most North Americans, correct?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it kind of felt like if your girlfriend was an actress and you're watching her like kiss somebody in a movie scene, or something, and you're like, like it doesn't really count, but it's a little weird. Like it felt weird seeing her, kiss somebody. It felt weird seeing Crosby score a goal again.
We're learning about Corey psychologically a little bit.
I know. That seems like it's like an episode of SVU.
This is 2 weeks in a row. I think we're busting out the therapy couch. So.
And Joe, one thing you said, Joe, about the Cup and the Olympics, you ask players which is more important. They will never give you an answer. Oh, I don't want to answer that. Sid, we always ask Sid, if you could win one more gold medal or one more cup, what would have? He won't give you an answer. You know damn well the answer is the cup. You know it is. I don't care what he says. He doesn't want to upset everybody in Canada, so he's not going to say, well, the gold medal is just as important as the Stanley Cup. I'm not saying it's not a big deal. Of course it is. It's not the Stanley Cup. It's just not.
No. But the Summer Olympics, I feel like, I don't even know, like we had Michael Johnston back in the day, I don't know anybody. Like
I love the running in the track and field. I love that. I mean, that's just pure sport. That's pure just who is the fastest MFer out there. I mean, and what always kills me about all the summer games is because the winter games a lot of judging and is just how your fast twitch muscles, like the gun goes off. I mean, it's a fraction of a second that defines the gold medals in these things. Like the swimming, imagine swimming and you're like, 0.001 from a gold medal, you but you take your whole life. It's just, oh my God, I jump off a bridge.
And that relay, the 4x100 relay from 2008, I think it was, that was one of the best races I've ever seen. The Michael Phelps one, where what's his name? Was it Lochte or whoever that made up a body length in like the last?
He chased him down at the end. Yeah,
that was, stuff like that. Like I remember, that was like everybody was talking about it. Now it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm 38 and I got other stuff to worry about. I don't know.
I love the running relays too, though, because of the way the track is formed. That it's like the outside guy will come around and then it evens out when they hand the baton off, and then like the one guy has the anchor and he just takes off. Yeah, it's badass. I can do without all the chick stuff, but what are you gonna do?
It's just a male Olympics.
No. Like I like seeing the chicks run, and I like the chicks that run and do the. Remember when Bob Beamon, like 20? You guys are young. It used to be that like no one jumped over 20 feet, and then Bob Beamon did like 28, and it was like he was Jesus Christ, and no one ever did. It was like it took like 20 years, and now like everybody does like way past Bob Beamon. Like I love the jumping. I love that track stuff. It's good shit. Stuff, whatever.
Yeah, no, I think we can say shit on here, but yeah, we got to talk. We'll have some surprise guests here coming up in the summer. I know we talk about Staggy. We'll have to figure out a time to do Staggy because, like I said, that might, based on your conversation, you guys say the conversations, that might end up being like a 2 or 3 episode recording.
To be continued.
But I am fascinated to pick his brain just on everything, like pre-broadcasting, like going back. I mean, because you watch the Penguin History DVD, Jesus, shows my age. The Penguin History video on YouTube. He's all through that because he's intricate to everything. He was there from basically the beginning. So yeah, if you guys want to drop us some comments on who you'd like to see, I know we have a couple former players that might join the show at some point, and we've got plenty to talk about. And I think Josh, I'm going to try to get Josh to enter the World Series of Poker with me, because we're going to be out in Vegas next week. Joe's going to be in Massachusetts for his show up in Boston, but we'll be recording live from Las Vegas. So if you're in Vegas for the draft, pay attention. We'll tweet out where we're going to do the recording from. But I got all day on the 28th. I know Josh is going to be probably at the first round, even though the Penguins don't have a pick. But all day on the 28th, I got nothing to do. So I might go over the World Series of Poker, and I'll see if I can lure Josh there. Next thing you know, you'll see Josh on ESPN, holding like a gold bracelet from winning.
Sitting beside Phil Ivey or something,
Wearing a cowboy hat with a chew in his mouth, sunglasses on, coffee, Gatorade, like 9 different types of beverages next to him.
Yeah. So, I mean, and lastly, before we talk about get your picks real quick, I mean, just general feeling from Game 7, 2009, like that day. Not talking about the game itself. We talked last week about Mario's text, but yourselves, like I remember I was just finishing college and I was lifeguarding because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life yet at that moment. It was the longest day of my life. Just a pit in my stomach all day. Couldn't really focus on the pool. So I don't know. Maybe people lived or didn't. I don't know. But what were you guys going through on that day? Because Josh, you were just starting to cover the team, so it had to have been a little bit of a mixed bag.
You know what? I didn't cover the Penguins full time until about 3 months later. I'd cover them a little bit, sporadically, but I actually wasn't in Detroit that day. So I didn't really join the beat full time until September of 2009. But I was certainly, I had been around the team a good bit that spring, and we all remember that particular day so well. I think if you care about the Penguins in any way, you know where you were on June 12th, 2009. I don't know why, but I remember thinking to myself, I think they're going to win tonight. I just had a sense it was just their time, and I didn't think they were going to lose two in a row to the Red Wings. I couldn't have imagined how the game was going to go with Crosby getting hurt and all the drama at the end of the game. But I just remember thinking, as I sat there in my seat at the now defunct McKeesport Daily News, putting the newspaper together while I was watching the game, I remember thinking, like, I just think they're going to find a way. and they did. But as one of the great games in Penguins history, if not the greatest, and I think one of the great Stanley Cup Finals in history. And I know this one will go down as one of the greats of all time, but one cannot deny how great that 2009 series was.
Incredible stuff. It chokes me up when I hear when I still think of Mike Lang calling Game 6 at the end when he's like, we're going back to Detroit for all the marbles. Doesn't get bigger than that. I remember exactly where I was at. I was performing opening for Lisa Lampanelli at the Sparkles Theater in San Diego, California. And I watched the first 2 periods from my hotel room. I took a nap between first and second period because I always used to take a pregame nap in that time. And it's like, what would Sid do? Sid would take his nap. And then I had to go to the gig. So then the internet, in those days you didn't have like your phone wasn't like Sprint or Spectrum. You had to be on the internet to get the internet on your phone. So I had my wife. So the Wi-Fi behind the theater just kept crapping the bed on the radio call. So I'm like, I call my wife. I go, you got to just tell me what's going on. With like 3 minutes left, I was freaking out. So then she's going. So we held the show because Lisa's like, you can't go. You're a mess. You can't go out there. You got to see what happens in the game. So like 5 minutes. Like it was like 5 minutes after the game, and then the show was supposed to start. Like we're holding. We always hold it anyway a little bit, but it's like we're holding for the game. So then literally we're all standing there. Lisa, her now ex-husband, like a couple people, and we're literally listening to my wife do the play-by-play of the last 3 minutes of the game. She's watching on TV, and she's like, and she goes back, and he goes, and now he shot the puck, and then there was dead silence on Fleury's save. You're like, what? And then she goes, they won. They're like, yeah. And then literally, it's like as soon as my wife goes, they won. And they're like, it's over. And then literally Lisa's intro music started. And then I got the intro to the show music, and I ran out. And I was just like, I guarantee no one in here gives a damn. It's San Diego. But my hockey team just won the Stanley Cup.
I wish there was video of Joe Bartnick like the moments after the Penguins won the Stanley Cup. I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, it was the only time I was not. The only parade I missed. The only time I wasn't in Pittsburgh for a Stanley Cup. Me and my security guy, we went drinking after everything.
I was going to say,
have a couple drinks.
You might have to ask your friend Fraser Smith if he has audio from, because you said you called in that night, right? And
no, I was in Pittsburgh that night. That was when they won when they beat Nashville. I called in that night. No. When they beat San Jose, I called in that night.
Right.
And you don't remember it?
No, I don't remember it.
Oh, we got to get that audio. So
only like 100,000 watts, only from like LA to Peru to hear me just saying nonsense.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. But all right, lastly, guys, what do you got tonight? I mean, it feels inevitable, but everything has been unpredictable. So
yeah, I listen. I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, I guess, because I picked Florida in 7. But I have to answer your question truthfully. You're asking me who I think is going to win tonight. I think Edmonton's going to win. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida won, but I just think Edmonton has so much momentum now. And I always say with the great players of all time, when they can smell it, when they're that close, more times than not, they find a way. I just have a feeling Edmonton's going to win.
I second exactly what Josh said. Yep. Literally everything he said is exactly the way I feel.
Yep. It feels inevitable. And we talked a couple weeks ago about the moment, and I think there's going to be a moment in this game that Connor McDavid just does his thing and cements himself, and that's going to be cool. There's going to be people that are up in arms about it, but enjoy it, guys, because it's Game 7. It's Stanley Cup Finals. I would love to see an overtime Game 7.
Oh,
that would
absolutely.
That would be incredible. So, well, I hope you guys all enjoy the game. Thank you for listening. You can email the show, the number 24talking at podcast@gmail.com. We're going to be in Vegas, so if you're going to be there, hit us up. But enjoy the games, and we will talk to you guys next week.